Have you ever had a physical symptom with no medical explanation? Well, I have, and it led me to find Kevin Rusell, an author, energy healer, and clairvoyant medium. In this episode, Kevin talks about his own journey from being a graphic designer and how his daughter was the catalyst to his own healing journey into the emotion code. This episode is a great introduction to the emotion code, which explains how emotions can get trapped or stored in our bodies, and how generational trauma can also be passed down and then become symptoms or symptomatic things in our body. And the best part about this is we can also acknowledge our own power and how to release it. So if you're new here, you're listening to the How We Get Thru podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations with healers from all over the world. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Thru app. And my mission is to bring you affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through the hard stuff, all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Thru community. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the How We Get Thru podcast. Season 2 has been a really special one for me, and another great special episode with just a really beautiful human being and just a great healer for myself. So I'm just so honored to have Kevin Rusell on the podcast today. He is with Radical Enlightenment with his wife Kelly, and they're just a beautiful powerhouse. He's an author, a clairvoyant medium, and also an energy worker healer. So Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jen. I'm so happy to talk to you today.
I know, this is so fun.
Yeah.
I was just crying right before, and we were just talking about how I'm just so used to just being so vulnerable and open, and I just really talks to the space that you create for myself and for other people. So thank you for you and all your work already. So many tears, probably this podcast.
I'm overjoyed in a way because we're using the system in the way it's supposed to be used. We have tear ducts and expressions and emotions and feelings for a reason. They can be signposts. Yeah. They can guide us to those areas that we might not want to look at, or didn't think we were quite ready to look at, or didn't even realize that we're there.
Yeah.
That really can help get to that root of what's going on that's keeping us in whatever state that we find ourselves in. That's less than enlightenment. That's less than peaceful presence, not attachment, awareness.
All the beautiful things. And I think really this episode, we'll probably talk about my personal journey, and I would love to know yours too. Yeah. But I think sometimes even these words and these things and what is the quantum and all this is let's bring people into the center of it, of what that actually means, which is peaceful presence, just to be with self, to be non-attached and to be with self. And so I'm excited to where we're going to go today.
Yeah.
And we typically like to start every episode off with a mental health myth, and I'm sure there's a shit ton here that we could. But we'd like to know what's on your heart today. What feels like something that you want to kind of address today in that regard?
One thing that's important to understand is for everyone, and this is something it comes around for me quite often, is that we are always in relationship to everything. We're in relationship to others. We're in relationship to our thoughts. We're in relationship to our past, our powerful subconscious, and we can talk about quantum entanglement and superposition as far as how we experience that in our real lives. Those energies keep us kind of stuck by worrying about the future. And a lot of what I've seen, or some of what I've seen coming up, is feeling responsible for others' states of being. And I think if we just peel back that top layer, most of us would recognize, if we take a minute to think about it, that is actually a myth. We're not responsible for anybody else. And at the same time, as I'm saying that, I feel almost the weight of us, humanity, feeling so responsible for others, either in an overbearing way, in a controlling way, which is really fear-led, which we see in, at societal levels with restrictions and laws, within family units, when there gets to be an asymmetrical dynamic of balance between relationships of parent-child, where we can be over-parentified at an early age, We can be feel like we're abandoned at an early age or unloved at an early age. And those can all express in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that they express is we start feeling responsible for our child's emotional state, our
Yes.
partner's emotional state, our friend's
Yes.
emotional state, our siblings, and everybody we start to either be responsible for, or we can swing the pendulum to the other side of the spectrum and want nothing to do with and just really shut down.
Yeah.
And both are expressions that kind of bloom from these early childhood experiences.
You know what's interesting you say about that? I mean, when you said child, I was like, whoa, yes. Like the child one has always been a mirror for me in a hard way of like, I know that I have the conscious awareness of, I know I'm taking on the responsibility of their emotions or their reactions. Part of that's being a parent of like, what am I doing? How do I manage this? Blah, blah, blah. But what's tricky for me is like the partner, I didn't know I was taking on my partner's emotions.
Yeah.
So there's even like different conscious levels of, oh, I know this is happening, but I had no idea it was happening in this relationship.
Yeah.
Which was even like a more gut.
Yeah. Well, and it's often those ones that aren't as visible that we kind of get blindsided by. We can. And in some capacity, I call them being gunned down by an emotional drive-by, where it's unexpected, where you don't even have visibility or awareness of it, and it just cuts us off at our knees. You know, I think to your point, like the parent-child one is a little bit more visible, and because it is, I think that's an easier mirror to see because we still have those memories of being that age. We still recognize that, you know, oh, I see myself in that reaction or that response from the child. The challenge when it comes to partners or spouses is that often it's a couple layers down, and so we don't quite recognize it because we get stuck at the symptom level, not the source level. So we get stuck. It's like, why won't you take the garbage out? Why can't you just be more like this? This is what I need. And all of those things are really just external, very surface components of life that if we pull back the lens, it's like, does it really matter that much? The action or the, you know, if our love language is words of affirmation and we're not getting them, then we point the finger at the other person instead of pulling back the layer and saying, okay, well, what is it within me that has created a deficit? So now I'm demanding words of affirmation from another. And this is the rub that I often share with love languages, is that it's a functional tool. It can be powerful to get this dimension of understanding about us as far as what our love language is. But when we demand another fill our perceived void with our love language, it's like saying, hey, I've got this trench that I've been working on in my soul and my spirit my entire lifetime. Unknowingly, I'm going to demand somebody else fill it, which is it's an expression of putting us out of balance. Because in my own journey, I've recognized literally everything comes from within. Our sense of safety, our sense of wholeness, our sense of peace, our sense of connection, all originates within. And if we're feeling disconnected or less than whole within, we're going to try and fill that with things outside of ourselves because that's what we've been conditioned to do. That's what everybody tries to do.
Yeah.
The new diet or the new self-help approach or intermittent fasting or keto or exercise is always a good one. So that's a net positive. So everybody exercise. Yeah. But we keep thinking, oh, this thing out here will be the thing that does it for me.
It's interesting you say that because I got distracted. It felt like a distraction of like, oh, my partner's whatever is not feeling like this. And so it is that external piece, the external distraction of self from self. Yeah. Of what is here for me, or what feels lonely, or what feels hard, or what feels abandoned, or what feels scary. Yeah. Right. But in the relationship cycle, and what you're saying is like it's easy to blame or point to the other person's faults or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
right, that we perceive, and that we can give that to ourselves. We can
Yeah.
invite ourselves into that. But we have to be not distracted by it. And I think that's what it felt like, a holy crap, like this is crazy. And it also felt like, how long have I been distracting myself from something that I really was needing healing from?
Yeah.
You know? And not a like, you're an idiot way.
No.
Maybe there's a little bit there, but a more like an aha
Yeah.
of how many other times have I distracted myself from external things when all I needed was myself.
Distraction is almost like a conscious thing. And I feel like that's one of the challenges, is that the energies that are creating these states of entanglement, or these states of less than abundant relationship, it's more under the curtain. It's like it's camouflaged. And so as opposed to distraction, it's like we can't even see it because our system won't let us go there, because it's safer to look outside and blame something outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because our system doesn't want to take the shorter route, which can be the more challenging route of holding up that mirror to ourselves and really like leaving it all on the table and saying, okay, and this is really what fueled my own journey of coming back to myself. I don't care what it is. I'm ready to address it and move through it. And this is where we get into a little bit of the subconscious mind, which is very functional. It's the part, and I tend to pull back from the fractalization or the specialization of the parts of the brain that do certain things, where we carry stuff, because it's a yes and. We are all of the parts and we are more. So if we just generalize and look at the subconscious mind body as the autonomic nervous system, the limbic system, the part of us that keeps us alive, I think it's the medulla oblongata, where it's this primal center, and there's function to it, and there's valuable function to it. I just heard on a podcast the other day that somebody was saying, as a girl that was talking, she said it's the part that keeps us from walking down that dark alley in a miniskirt at 4 a.m, because who knows what's down there.
Yeah.
The challenge is our system doesn't differentiate between a dangerous alleyway in the middle of the night or our partner that we've been with for 10 years, 20 years, or our boss and our relationship there, or just existing in modern society.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly in a low-grade stress response, even if we're not aware of it. And that's kind of like, we use the analogy of boiling a frog, where, you put it, the frog goes in the pot, room temperature water, turn the heat up, and it slowly boils and doesn't hop out because it doesn't recognize the shifts that are taking place.
Right.
And we get stuck in the same pattern because it's such this hyper-vigilant stress state is so familiar and so regular that instead of us being in a state of more peaceful presence and non-attachment, which is our natural state of being more often, we're in a constant stress, pulling on our reserves, frayed and fragmented. Our nervous system is fried, our adrenals are fried, our immune system gets fried, the system starts breaking down, and we keep trying to support ourselves by the symptoms. But being sick is just a symptom of an underlying state of dis-ease or imbalance within the mind-body system. And I'm not gonna say it's always emotional or it's always entangled in that way, but a lot of times I'd say most of the time it's at least a component of it.
Which I think there isn't, like, that's not widely accepted or known. So there almost is like a little bit of like, let's scream to the mountaintops, like, what if it is emotional too?
Yeah.
Like, so I've always loved your viewpoint of like both and like, it's not just this one thing. And I think as human beings, we kind of want that. Like, what is the quickest like diet, right? What is the one thing that's gonna make it better, right? And this is where I would love for you to talk about the emotion code, because for me as a therapist, I was going through my own thing, and one of my friends sent me a podcast on the emotion code, and I was like, I feel like this is the thing that has been missing for me personally, and I could see even for my clients, is this body connection, is this connection to emotion and how it was impacting my body, which was like extreme right stomach pain. I'm like doing a stabbing motion.
Yeah.
No one can see, but that, you know, the doctors didn't, everything was like, you're fine. I was like, you know, yeah. So talk to us about the emotion code. You can talk, I mean, I think it interweaves with your journey as well,
Yeah.
but let's hear it.
I love it. So yeah, so the emotion code is a book and a framework, I guess you could call it, of getting underneath the surface of the symptom and identifying what contributing factors are present within the mind-body system that are emotionally based, kind of in a Cliff's Notes synopsis. So on my own journey, and I think the challenging and the important thing to recognize is that our symptoms, and I'm using finger quotes, whatever they are, it's those chronic states of experience that are either undiagnosed, diagnosed with potentially some management options, but no cure, or in your experience, what a doctor might call phantom pains, or, you know, kind of dismiss as, well, just drink more water, get, you know, try and get less stressed. And it's like, well, how the heck am I supposed to do that?
Yeah.
So the emotion code was it was actually probably one of the main tools that I used on my own journey. So I learned how to self-muscle test, which is, you can, if you search applied kinesiology, you're going to find a lot of information about that. We actually teach a self-muscle testing course because we are a truth detector. Our entire mind-body system is a truth detector. And if we get out of our thinking mind, we get out of the place thinking, oh, I have the answer, because that's only going to keep us boxed in and kind of fixed and finite, and open to inquiry of like, okay, well, what is contributing to this way I'm feeling? We can really eradicate a lot of stuff that we've been carrying with us. But the first step is self-awareness and getting beyond that knee-jerk reaction of dismissing it, and it being whatever our symptom is. Migraines, chest pain, prehypertension, high blood pressure, irritable bowel, leaky gut. A lot of these things, again, they can be contributed to by our diet and by the inputs that we experience in life. And it's also our filters that react with the inputs and create these states of dis-ease within the mind-body system, mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual. So what you shared, yours were, they were, I'd say they were regular but intermittent.
Yeah.
And when they did pop up, they were pretty acute. So like it was fairly intense physical pain, physical expression you were feeling.
Yeah.
Mine were much more subtle but longer term. So I was born with and had to move through a lot of food allergies when I was young. And my expression was physical sickness. So I had a ton of ear infections and strep throats before like 3 or 4. So I think this is early 1980s. So you give the kid heavy doses of antibiotics, which just exacerbated the issue because it scorched earth my mind body system biome and depleted me of the natural flora, fauna, bacteria, and viruses in my gut that was, processing food and doing all the wonderful things. So on the one hand, it was a tough experience because I was on an elimination diet in 2nd grade where I couldn't have any grain, any dairy, any sugar.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm
because you were allergic to all of them?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so in, 2nd grade, it's, what do you want? At least the kind of that typical is like pizza, hot dogs, cheeseburgers,
peanut butter and jelly.
Exactly. And so it was beautiful self-knowledge in the sense that I really got to understand, like, for me, the best part of the hamburger is everything else, because we were having a barbecue and everybody's putting on the ketchup and the cheese. And I was in 2nd grade, so I wasn't so much into the veggies. And I'm sitting there with just a gray hockey puck on my plate because I didn't like mustard. I couldn't have ketchup. I couldn't have the cheese or the bun.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
So get into, go through puberty and everything that, the hormones kind of take care of everything, and I'm eating whatever I want. I'm kind of, it's that It's that indestructible kind of teenage years.
Yeah.
And then all my stomach stuff started coming back in my 20s. And it was
like
this...
IBS?
I called it bubble gut.
Yes,
because it
bubble gut.
It was kind of before the labels, the identifiers came in.
Yeah.
And it was IBS, leaky gut, constipation, diarrhea, gassiness, bloatiness, pretty much all of it in different ways. Another experience of self-knowledge was going on a raw food challenge when my wife Kelly was teaching at a yoga studio. There was a nutritionist in the studio, and it was just, I like giving myself challenges, and it's a great way to understand more about how our own bodies work. So it was only raw fruits and vegetables, no meat, no sugar, no alcohol, no oil other than cold-pressed olive oil for a month. 3 days into this diet, every symptom physically that I was experiencing cleared up. I felt solid in my digestion, probably for the first time in my life. I felt energized. I felt more alive. My biggest challenge was consuming enough calories, because I felt like I was eating all day and I was barely getting to like 1,400 calories, just because raw fruits and vegetables, not a lot of volume, not a lot of actual protein, kind of dense. Yeah. Exactly. So again, more information, more knowledge. Come off the diet, stay eating clean, still feeling good, and then next thing you know, a couple months later, all my old symptoms start coming back again. So I'm like, what? And again, at this point in my life, I was still very externally focused. There's something there's an input that I'm either taking in or not taking in that's going to solve this thing for me.
Yeah.
And then our daughter ends up being the rocket that launches Kelly and I into what we're doing now. And because she was going through reactivity, she was at a state of physical reaction. And it was due to the stress of Kelly and I fighting. And we wouldn't admit it at the time. Oh no, we're just arguing semantics. We're just spiritually disagreeing. No, we were fighting. We were dismissing it away because we weren't admitting it to ourselves.
Yeah.
So Ryan, our daughter's name's Ryan. So my wife takes her to this Western MD who also practiced a form of muscle testing and emotional subconscious inquiry.
Wow.
It took a 7-minute conversation and maybe one muscle test for our daughter, who was 7 or 8 at the time, to connect with this picking, scratching thing I do, this nervous tick, is because I'm anxious when mom and dad fight.
Wow.
The amazing thing is, because she was still fairly young, still really connected to source or God or whatever we perceive that energy that is greater than our individual signature is, but that we're all connected to. It took one 7-minute conversation, maybe one muscle test, connecting the behavior with the source, and she literally never did it again.
Holy shit.
Then the doctor turns to Kelly and says, asks our daughter to stay in. Can you wait in the waiting room just for a sec? Turns to Kelly, says, she's fine. You two need to do the work. So this is really that kind of origin story of what launched us in the direction we've gone. And the other two massive tools that I picked up were the emotion code and, as I mentioned, learning how to self-muscle test. The other bit of information, and we're doing a lot of research, so I guess we're kind of balanced in the sense of like very open to the magic of our energetic reality and quantum energy, collective consciousness, the energetic field, but also let's see what the research shows. Let's see what's there from an information standpoint. So come across research as far as, the quality of thoughts and volume of thoughts that we have in any given day. I was blown away that, some people have like 37,000 thoughts in a day. I'm like, that seems like really heavy lifting. Wow. I don't know if I've ever had that many.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of these are subconscious. So there's these fleeting, flitting, reinforcing thoughts that keep us in the box that we're in, keep us entangled in the past, projecting into the future and out of the present moment, because our system just wants to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And a byproduct of that is about 95 to 98, 99% of our thoughts on any given day are going to be a looping, repetitive version of something we've thought before. And about up to 85% are going to trend or be toward a more negative thought. So I come across this information. I'm like, well, then why am I listening to anything that's going on in my head? If that's what I'm stacked up against, I'm just going to chuck it all and I'm just going to start muscle testing everything. Because I didn't have a dog in the fight of, I need this or this has to be this way. I was just curious.
Yeah.
So I was muscle testing what shirt to wear. Do I want to wear pants or shorts today? It's kind of warm, but kind of cool. what I wanted to eat for meals, what show I was interested in, if we were going to go out, what restaurant I wanted, just because I was curious. And I was using the emotion code along the way. I was fascinated. I was fascinated by the responses my system was giving me and the direction they were pointing as far as the answers go using the emotion code. And there's an emotion code chart, which is kind of a diagnostic tool of a series of negative emotions that we can identify and release. We release the entanglement with them, and we gain freedom from the symptoms that those emotions are creating.
Yeah.
So then my symptoms started to disappear again, but I hadn't changed any of the inputs. What I was doing was excavating all the stuff I'd been carrying with me my entire lifetime. And so this path and this approach is really it's a reductive exercise. And I think this is the big flip for me that a lot of us get stuck in, where we think we need to add something from the outside in order to feel whole, to feel inspired, to be loved or feel loved, to feel worthy, to be worthy. But it really is an inside out job. And it's just excavating all those layers of conditioning and programming and beliefs and thought patterns that most of them aren't even ours. If we kind of pull back a layer or two, it's like, oh, I sound like my mom. Oh my gosh, I sound just like my dad.
Yeah.
So if we got out of those entanglements, get to the root of it, then we can actually start feeling the capital Y you, the capital M me a little bit more. The I and I, the I that sees myself in you and in every other human. The I am behind all of the labels and archetypes and identifiers and hats that we wear and roles that we play in life that are things we experience, but they don't really define who we are as humans being, what we can call it.
Yeah.
And that was really the aha moment for me, where I was like, oh, I don't need to add anything. I just need to take those sometimes terrifying, sometimes challenging, sometimes very emotional steps to unpacking and releasing all of those programs that served a function, kept us alive, and also keep us stuck, keep us sick, keep us in looping patterns that no longer serve us.
And what's also crazy is that, I mean, obviously my experience with you in it, that it can be ancestral, it can be pre-utero or in utero.
Preconception, in utero, yep.
Like, can you, in past lives, like, can you explain
so
how the hell that happens?
So now we're pulling a little bit of the quantum.
Okay.
So from a quantum perspective, and I love that there is a movie that kind of, alliterated it just recently, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, such a good show.
If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. It's a beautiful,
it is.
It's a beautiful story about a mother-daughter relationship that really looks at it from a quantum standpoint, it was fascinating. And I was so overjoyed to see this as a major motion picture release. As excited as I was when Soul came out from Disney, the animated movie. So if anybody's wanting to get a better understanding of, again, these are fictional, but get a different view of the hows and the whys of the way we do things and the opportunities that exist for us, check out Soul and check out Everything Everywhere All at Once. So past life is a colloquial term that helps us get our bearings in what we are perceiving as our linear space-time reality. We remember being little. We see older people than us, so we have this perception of time. We've estimated the age of the universe, we've estimated the age of the Earth, and we've taken best guesses at kind of our place in the universe. From a quantum standpoint, every possible expression of us is happening in this moment. Just like everything that we perceive in the past or has happened in the past is happening right now. Everything that we perceive as future or what we're building towards already exists. And we wouldn't be able to have a human experience if we had perceptions of our multidimensional reality.
Yeah, that's too much.
Right, yeah. Much like our system, the subconscious mind body, that autonomic system, we almost have a governor, like a speed capacitor on our system that really helps us to live in life. So the easiest way to understand that is thinking about our nose. As we're looking out of our eyes, we don't see our nose because our system says, hey, we know this thing is always here. Don't worry about it. We're going to spend our energy elsewhere. It would, if we were like wide open and we didn't have these capacitors on our experience, existing on Earth would almost be impossible. The colors would be too bright, the noise is too loud, everything would be moving too fast. We wouldn't be able to drive cars without these functional processes that our body has. The other side of that coin is too much of a good thing keeps us debilitated, sick, miserable, disconnected from ourselves and others, feeling like we're less than the miracles that we are. In these processes that I was going through on my own journey, I kind of hit different, almost like the Panama Canal, where there's different elevations of locks that get ships from the Caribbean to the Pacific. And so I was just doing my thing, feeling better one step at a time, focusing on my life. And a lot of times from life, it can be something that's trapped, something that gets stuck within the mind-body system, within the fascia. It can be hidden, an emotion that we're not admitting to ourselves. It can be a resonance, almost like the bell being struck and that resonance of the emotion just kind of staying within our experience. Or it can be compound, where it's one or more emotions from one or more experiences that get congealed into a single expression. So that was the framework I was using when I started, and making good headway, feeling really good. And then we went on a family trip to Europe. And in this life, my family lineage comes from Scotland, Ireland mostly. So I don't know if it was a proximity thing or what, but all of a sudden, all of my old symptoms started flooding back. And again, any symptom you're experiencing, I shouldn't say again, because this is the first time I've said it. Right. Any symptom you're experiencing is a check engine light. Yeah. Nothing more. But we assign so much meaning to the symptom, like, oh, if I did this, then I wouldn't be experiencing this. Is this because if I was a better person, then this wouldn't be happening to me? And so we try and justify it away, as opposed to just staying open and curious. If we experience something less than health,
desirable. Yeah. There's a blame component there too. Yeah. There's a blame, shame component of I didn't take care of myself, or I didn't know, or I didn't watch this, or so I think in that, when you're in that space, you can't be curious and non-judgmental, right? So it's kind of that invitation in, like when you start to feel kind of judgmental or blamey, can you move into the curiosity of like, oh, that's interesting.
And that's the first step, is recognizing when we're in a reaction and taking the conscious step to disrupt the reaction. And it's not advised to make a decision from a reactive standpoint, because we're not going to make
but we do
all the time. We do. Oh my gosh. But we do.
Yeah.
And the challenge is, it's not even us making that decision. It's the patterns that we've experienced from the past that are really informing that decision, because it's a reaction to our current environment.
Yeah.
And so that's the key. And this is really with muscle testing, with inquiry, using the emotion code. If we are not in a place of practice from a balanced, present state of being, we're not going to get an accurate test. We're not going to get an accurate response from our mind-body system. We're going to get a programmed response that just reinforces the old habits and ways of being.
Yeah. Which is flight, fight, freeze.
Exactly. Fight, freeze, fawn. Right. And I heard there was another new F that got added to it. I can't remember what it is though.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is. And that's the thing where it's like, I feel like we get stuck in diagnoses. We get stuck in the minutia.
Yeah.
As opposed to just recognizing no one has had this life experience. And this is where we get to that miracle. So everything happening everywhere all at once. And even with that, there's every version of you that exists right now. There's every version of me that exists right now. There's a version that never took this step in self-cleansing, self-journey, and I'm still a designer. There's a version of me that never became a designer. There's a version of me that maybe was playing sports or was an architect or something like that. And it's all happening right now. Just like the opportunity to shift always exists if we can get out of our own way. And I like to say, to disrupt is divine, because the more we disrupt the negative physiological states we experience, the more space we have to actually operate and make a conscious decision of is this behavior, activity, reaction, response, does this feel good? Is this something I want to continue experiencing? Or could there possibly be another way of approaching it, a different way of being within this space? And so by the time I got to Europe, I'd been practicing with the emotion code and self-muscle testing for probably about 1.5 years. And so when my old symptoms came back in, I wasn't in a place of blaming or reactivity and looking outside of myself for an answer. It was more of an awareness of a feeling instead of a reaction to a feeling, because I started to become more comfortable in the discomfort in order to gain more understanding and awareness of what was behind the discomfort, what message was behind that for me. So that's when I started to connect with a lot of ancestral energy. And the wild thing was, and when I did, almost in the cinema of the mind, in the mind's eye, I was dropped back to these experiences as I was visualizing, imagining, remembering, connecting with that energetic grid that we're all connected to and pulling information from it.
Yeah.
And I was viscerally feeling these emotions that what I perceived as my ancestors in this lifetime went through, and they became trapped within the DNA. And so if we look now, and this is part of the challenge where it does incorporate everything when we look at it from the quantum standpoint. So we look at epigenetics, and this is micro. So at the micro level of epigenetics, they've actually done research where they're proving up to, I think, 14 generations back now, there is genetic or DNA augmentation mutation based on experience. And so that's at the micro level. So this can be expressed in obesity in a family line. It's a safety protection mechanism of the quantum mind body. We can look at it in a predisposition to alcoholism, self-medication, because the system has found a way to survive and kind of be okay. And for our subconscious, that's good enough. Because happiness, fulfillment, joy, peace, abundant relationships, that is not our subconscious's department. Our subconscious is focused on survival, and it is wildly powerful.
Yeah.
So I wasn't attached to the way I was feeling. I was curious about it. And that's where I got really a lot of information. And I was just open, and I was clearing and transforming these emotions that weren't mine, but they were connected to me in some way. And I felt a release and relief from the symptoms once again. And so again, it's just layers of perception, layers of awareness, the universe meeting us where we're at, giving us those signposts if we're open to them, to guide us back to those natural states of being. And I look at it, you can look at the animal kingdom as a reference. So the analogy I usually use is a gazelle being chased by a cheetah. And so let's say, cheetah's on its tail, the gazelle zigging and zagging, ends up getting away. The cheetah doesn't get a meal. Gazelle goes back to its herd. And then for the next 3 weeks, complains, commiserates, B&Ms to the rest of its herd. You remember that when I got chased 3 weeks ago by that cheetah? What was that guy? I can't believe that. You know what it did to me? It made me scared. I was terrified. I can't believe that happened. No, cheetahs don't do that. They give a massive full body shake as soon as the experience is over, and they go right back to peacefully grazing. And we don't afford ourselves those same kind of releases. Yeah. Again, now we're getting into family lines and kind of gender roles. On the masculine side of things, stuff it down, don't cry, dust yourself off, pick yourself up. It's not that bad. On the feminine side of the spectrum, why do you have to be so emotional all the time? Why has everything got to be such a big deal? And so we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't, because of our parents' conditioning from their experience growing up, because of our grandparents' conditioning, and on and on and on. Yeah. We can also see it at the genetic level at scale, with Ashkenazi Jewish populations being predisposed. I think is Alzheimer's. I might be getting that wrong, but it's 1 in 23 within this genetic group that have a chance to be impacted by this. In Black American genetic groups, 1 in 13 have a predisposition to sickle cell anemia. And so this is, we look at all of these things and it's like, well, why do these things happen? Well, look at the trauma that these genetic groups have experienced. Yeah. That is going to reverberate through space and time and be passed down, because it's a reaction, it's a quantum reaction to what we're experiencing as linear time. And so we've got the opportunity to, with whatever hand we've been dealt, we have an opportunity to improve our relationship to life, to our bodies, to everyone else by taking that internal dive, which, again, we know there's no playbook for it, unfortunately. Just like there's no, well, there kind of is now. But just like, there's no handbook for being a parent.
Yeah.
There really isn't any one right way to go about this emancipation from the shackles and the prison of life that our subconscious kind of transforms into, because nobody is having the same experience.
Right.
And so what I've done is I've been up and down my own mountain numerous times, and I've gotten to a place of practice and awareness and bringing in some of that, clairvoyance, some of that connection to the information grid, where I can help guide others up their own mountain. But we're still taking the step. We're still taking the steps on the journey. It's not a doing for, it's a moving through with, so to speak.
And honestly, I mean, it can feel really overwhelming of like, I have 14 generations of shit attached to my body energetically. That's making me depressed and sad and anxious, But at the same time, when I was doing my work with you, I mean, our first session, so it's like, here we go. I'm ready.
Jumped in with both feet.
Again, I was so ready. Yeah. And even the stuff that we worked on recently, when you identify like my mom's stuff, my dad's stuff, or past life stuff, it is a little like, oh, okay, great. Like that wasn't all mine, right? Like that wasn't my self-disgust currently right now. So it feels a little bit, I think, easier to digest. And I mean, there's like this, gosh, I can't remember how it goes, but it's some sort of, Instagram reel floating around of like, it's, pain is getting passed through the generations, and the one who's like brave enough to feel it or, is going to transform that or transmute that. And I think that's a lot of like millennial generation too, where I do think we're transmuters, we're healers in our own right of healing ourselves. We're kind of the stoppers there as much as we can be. I mean, we're going to still carry on and pass on shit. But I think there's like, it's a lot of intense work. And I think also what you reminded me of too is to be, I think, really kind with myself, because I think we did 6 weeks and I freaking cleared that pain, and I never felt it again. And then December, January, it came back. The most like labor intense pains for like 8 hours straight. And I was on the phone with you for the second round of it. It was just like, all right, girl, we're going to do this. Like, we're going to clear this belief. We're going to do this. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. And it just still was there. And so again, it went away the next day and I haven't felt it since. But I think like that, again, it's not a quick fix. And sometimes it is like a quick relief. Like you did work even when we're not present together. And I was like, oh, all of a sudden it feels a little different.
A little lighter.
Yeah. But I think it's even in your own experiences, like when it comes back, for me, it's like, that is the only way that I can communicate it sometimes when I'm just like on the path and it's like, oh no, girl, you're going to be taken down right now because you haven't been listening to yourself or there's something here to clear.
There's more underneath it. There's more there. And I think that's another challenge. And again, challenge and opportunity. And with anything we experience as a challenge, there's an opportunity within it if we pull back the lens enough to be able to have that awareness. So looking at it from that quantum standpoint, it's also important to look at it from a thermodynamic standpoint as well, because we are mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. We are also electromagnetic, biochemical, bioelectric, biophysical. And if we are just living life, not doing anything, sitting on the couch, we're producing enough energy to power a desk fan. The human body, one body.
Wow.
Trained athletes at a full sprint, thinking like Usain Bolt, they're outputting enough energy in that sprint to heat an oven to 350 degrees.
Wow.
And again, just in rest, in a given day, our system is burning 1,300 calories just to maintain life, just to maintain bodily function. So if we look at it from that standpoint, our system is going to be super efficient with the way that it communicates with us, because otherwise it's expending excess energy. And energy can't be created or destroyed. Most of us are familiar with the first law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics is really, when it was written, it was focusing on the universe. And it says something along the lines of, within an isolated system, energy will tend or trend towards entropy or dissolution, chaos or mutation, unless acted upon by an outside source. We are a universe within the universe. Estimates are between 70 to 100 trillion and maybe up to 140 trillion cells inside the human body. So as varied as the stars and the galaxies are in the universe, that's the variation that we've got within this biome, the mind-body system. And only about 40% of that is human DNA.
Wow.
The other 60% is our flora, fauna, microbes, naturally occurring bacteria and viruses that are really the help us function and thrive in life, or not, depending on our inputs and our filters again. So from that standpoint, the more that we can not react to the way we're feeling and recognize it as a messenger, the more effective we can be with it. Because just like a record on loop, those dances that we get into with our parents, those patterns that we then replicate with a boss, with coworkers, with our partners in life, it's a groove on a record that's been playing so long it gets pretty deep. And so, again, efficiency can be like water. It finds the low point. So for me, my low point was stomach dis-ease and bubble gut. For you, your low point was that right side pain. Because our systems know, hey, if we trigger this physiological response, it's going to get their attention.
Yeah.
And so that's where we can get exasperated on the journey, where it's like, oh, I cleared it up and I felt great for 3 or 5 or 6 months, or 3 or 5 or 6 years. And then all of a sudden it came back. I thought I was done with this.
Yeah.
And that's like driving our car and saying, well, why is my gas light coming on again? I filled up last week,
Yeah.
It's just an aspect of awareness that's available for us. If we, again, shift out of that reactivity, shift into more present, peaceful present observation and awareness, then we can start to see the signal within the noise.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times we experience in the mind. Our mind chatter is so prevalent and so present that it's hard to see the signals that are always there because there's so much noise going on.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, it just is, I think, becoming more clear of the thought and feeling of like you missed something, or you're doing this again, or you didn't do something right. Like, again, like a bit of a shame spiral. And also, I just didn't want to be in it.
Yeah.
I was like, no, no, when we are not doing this again, I need to get out of this as quickly as possible. And that was our experience. I mean, I might have blacked out for part of it. So intense.
It was really intense.
It was a triage point.
Yeah.
And this isn't a very normal session.
It was battlefield, like staunching the wound, like, just getting you stable, 100%. Yeah.
Yes, but it felt like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can.
Yeah.
And then my body was just like, okay, but we're still holding on to something. Yeah. Or maybe it was even the judgment around like, I'll do anything to get out of this pain.
Yeah.
But it's like, but will you? You know what I mean? Or are you?
Yeah.
Are you listening? Are you really kind of paying attention? And, and in the moment, it is very hard to feel that level of pain, to then be like, oh, okay. Not cursing myself, not, like being really harsh in all the ways, like it's just a crazy experience that I'll never forget, and I hope never happens again.
Exactly.
But also, I think what's coming clear for me and what I'm receiving from you right now is just that gentleness and that ease, because I felt attuned to my body.
Yeah.
But was I actually, or I think a little bit more of like, am I attuned to every part of me?
Yeah.
More, I feel like, is the second lesson of like, what are you doing that maybe you're not really aligned with?
Yeah.
And how is that showing up? And it needed to be extreme.
And I'm not gonna get it quite right, but there's, you mentioned that saying going around on social media There's another one where it's
Uh-huh.
like, the first time the universe has a message for you, it whispers. The second time it shouts. The third time it kneecaps you. It just cuts you
Yes.
down at the knees. Because there's a
Yes.
message there that we, to your point, we haven't accepted, we haven't recognized, we don't want to look at. We might not
Yeah.
might not be ready for the change in our life that is required in order to tell our system, okay, we got it. Thank you for that
Yeah.
information. Thank you for that message. And to me, this is another dimension of experience where we're transforming our relationship to our mind-body system by sometimes getting in the deep end. And I've experienced this with energy, working with clients where I'm like, oh, I can do it. I can do anything, which, there's good and bad to that approach. I think shifting out of fear is very powerful. And there's so many subtle aspects that we can kind of put in the fear camp that keep us stuck in life, that if we can really hold the mirror up and address, we can gain amazing freedom from. And again, information for me is so powerful because come across some research, the only two natural fears that humans have are falling and loud noises.
Wow.
From a biological standpoint. Everything else is conditioned, programmed, epigenetic, passed down, co-created in life.
Yeah.
And so I was working with a client, and a big issue she was having was driving on a freeway or driving on a tollway on a interstate. Country roads were fine. Surface streets, even 2-lane surface streets were okay, but she could not drive on a multi-lane highway. Couple sessions, I think we maybe had 3 or 4 sessions, and we get to this core, really impactful memory. And I think she grew up in Wisconsin, so experiences the seasons, and she connected with a memory of being in the back seat of her parents' station wagon, back when seatbelts were more of a suggestion than a requirement.
Yeah.
And every time they would crest this hill in the town they lived in, there was a pond or a lake at the bottom. Her mom would say in the winter, oh, I hope we don't hit ice and skid off into the pond.
Oh,
I hope we don't get in a wreck and drown. In the summer, telling the dad, you need to slow down. This is dangerous. What if our brakes go out? And so, after we unpacked some of the layers, we got to this core wound, this core trauma that she had completely forgotten about. And as soon as we were able to address and release that, it changed everything. And then I get a text or an email a week and a half later saying she's going on a road trip to Virginia Beach and she's driving. So it might, a lot of things come through in unexpected ways. And I mean, I had one where I was working a process with myself and I was getting stuck. And I think Kelly may have been facilitating, my wife may have been facilitating for me. And what was coming up was something in 4th grade where I gave a presentation and there was embarrassment, fear, shame. I don't even remember giving a presentation about anything in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And even in the process, I was imagining it if I had, because I just didn't have a memory of it. And the wild thing is, as soon as I kind of went into that imagination space, allowed myself to imagine what it would feel like as a 4th grader to get up and feel these things in a presentation, I let myself feel them, which was opening the doorway to release it. And so I like to say we got to feel it to reveal it. And the only way forward is through. We have to move through these memories, through these past experiences, bring them back up. But the difference between addressing them consciously and transforming them subconsciously is we're not going to talk about it. We can identify it, but we're not going to go back and drop into that experience more than we need to in order to release it. And this is really where the process comes into play, where we never drop into a subconscious transformation process, coming in off the street with just like, okay, I'm here, I'm ready. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, getting positive disruption, getting balanced, grounded, and centered in order to then make a conscious whole brain decision instead of a dominant hemisphere reaction.
Which is like somatic breathing exercise. Like it's all body related.
100%. 100%. So breath work, crossing the midline of the body is
Yeah.
huge because we are electromagnetic. We actually have two electromagnetic fields. One is a toroidal or donut-shaped field around the heart, and the other outer electromagnetic field is closer to diagrams or illustrations you may have seen of the Earth's electromagnetic field. And if we are in a stress response, we are in dissonance. We are in non-connection. It's like there's a short in the fuse.
Yeah.
And so these positive disruptions electromagnetically are much like hitting a reset button on the outlet in a bathroom. Because it's an outlet close to water, there has to be a trip that is going to not fry the entire outlet or even the breaker. And our bodies are the same way. Our system flips into a stress response and is going to stay there unless we intervene.
Yeah.
And again, it's so subtle, most of us don't realize we're there, so we just keep this stress response going. So when we're doing something asymmetrically, and you can think of it like patting your head or patting your head and rubbing your belly, we're giving our system something more challenging to focus on to keep it away from its almost like Terminator-like scanning for danger outside of us. The analogy I use a lot is it's like if anyone's had a dog and the dog gets a bead on something outside of the house and they just get this hyper focus, this low growl, and then you disrupt it and somehow, hey, and hey, here's a toy, here's a treat. The dog immediately goes back to, this happy kind of carefree, like out of sight, out of mind space. And that's available for us as well with intervention, with taking those steps. So yeah, it's body movement, breath work, a lot of the usual suspects we've heard, getting outside, going for a walk in nature, grounding in water, taking our feet off, if it's not too cold outside, and physically connecting with the earth, taking time for ourselves, meditation, self-care. Maybe it's like, I just need an hour where there are no screens, there's nobody demanding anything from me. I just need some space. Yeah. And we can combine it too. So let's say our go-to is getting outside and going for a walk. That's a triple threat disruption because we're spending time in nature, we're rebounding when we're walking, and we're breathing because we're most likely, if we're walking, we're going to have more of a metered, not forced, but active breath.
Yeah.
So just getting outside and going for a walk can do it. Personally, I like to hit it hard. So I like to be a bit more intentional and intense with my intervention. There's a lot of tools that I'm happy to share. We actually have created a daily disruption process where you take 3 minutes in the morning, 9 minutes in the evening to do some of these practices to stay out of a stress response for more often than we would normally. And that's really the first step, is we call it playing catch and release, recognizing when we're in a stress response and breaking that, glass in case of emergency, or pulling our chute out of that nosedive that we're in, that is the stress response.
Yeah. Which I like to just state, like, you don't have to know why you're being angry. You don't have to like deep dive into it. You know, I think people get stuck there, which is, a lot of my work is like, why does that happen? But it is just this physical thing that you can do that takes like 3 to 5 minutes that I feels really tangible than trying to figure out why the hell you just yelled at your kids,
And in the moment,
you just did.
Right.
So take care of yourself.
And in the moment, you are not going to be able to figure it out because you're in that stress response. So the system is going to be like it's going to externalize it. So it's something my kids did. Of course, that's why I responded this way.
Yep.
If we're trying to figure it out in the moment. And so that's the most important thing, is to just step away. Physically, sometimes can be powerful. Internally, by these positive disruptions, if it's available to us. And then only after things are back to stasis, things have settled down a little bit, and you're back in a whole brain state. Now, then, if you've got the space, then you can think, then you can ruminate, then you can inquire, like, what was that? Why did I have that reaction? But the most important thing in the moment is to pull up, eject out of that nosedive. Because all we end up doing, and I think we mentioned it earlier, we pull on those adrenals, on those nervous system, and the nervous adrenals, and the other one I balance. I can't remember what it is right now. But we allow these reserves to fill back up, so we're not getting frayed at the edges. We're not in a state of depletion where other symptoms start piling up.
Yeah.
And this is probably, for everyone listening, this is probably the most challenging juncture point that you will find.
Yeah.
because
Just doing it.
just disrupting those responses, because those autonomic, those knee-jerk reactions, those limbic system reactions, they feel justified, they feel righteous, they feel safe, and they feel powerful.
Yeah.
And we don't often
And familiar.
and we don't often get to feel these things in life because of all those muddy, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. If it's not perfect, then that means X, Y, and Z about me.
Yeah.
Because we're so stuck in these loops that are getting reinforced with these stress responses. The most powerful and the most challenging thing that is there for us is a disruption, regardless of any additional intervention, whether the subconscious, talk is sparking something for you or not.
Yeah.
If you can just disrupt those stress responses, shorten the duration between reaction and recognition, and then shifting out of it, you're going to be doing yourself and everyone in your world an amazing, amazing favor and a huge benefit to everyone. Because you're taking responsibility for what you are expressing into the world. You are acting as a signpost and a guide for others, especially little kids. If they're seeing you, instead of react and blow up, pause, excuse yourself for just a minute, use one of the physiological, bioneural stress relief practice, and then come back into the situation or experience. So it's patterning this new approach, this new behavior. And we don't need to convince anybody. We don't need to tell anybody what we're doing. We just do for ourselves. And that was me. I felt a ton better when I started doing all these practices. I didn't care what I looked like. There's a whole brain exercise called cross crawls. I'm doing those in the corner of a grocery store. Yeah. Because I'm feeling a clenchiness in my chest and gurgliness in my digestion.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of just kind of, I don't care what it looks like. It feels good when I do this. And if you do care, but I'm just going to go to the bathroom real quick. And you can knock out some quick breath work, some quick whole brain exercises, even just going up on your tippy toes and then letting your heels drop. It's called the heel drops. That can shake up the system and say, hey, you don't need to be on hyper alert. You don't need to be ultra vigilant right now. It's just the afternoon and my kid drew on the wall. It's okay. Like, well, we can handle this type of thing. Yeah.
And that's what I love about the work in that. It just feels like if you don't do the emotion code, if you don't do whatever, like this is the one thing that you can do that will just benefit everybody. It's almost like I see it as like the ultimate act of self-love, like a part of it. Like I'm going to nurture myself. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to allow myself to regulate because I care. Yeah. I care about my body. I care about me, and I care about the people around me. Yeah. And if I can care about myself, then I can truly care for other people,
That's really the only way.
World peace, baby. If we all just disrupted, there'd be no war.
And that's really the rub. It's like world peace is an inside out job. Yeah. We can't force anyone to do anything. It's impossible. We can beg, borrow, plead, cajole, coerce, control. And it has a finite a shelf life. It will in a relationship, in a family, or at a societal level, control can only last for so long because our natural state is one of self-governance, self-realization, and self-actualization. Our natural state is peacefully present, not attached, in the moment. Recognizing the space and the distance internally we have between the true self, that spark that is us, that intuition, that gut feeling, that the inner state beyond the emotions, beyond the labels and identifiers and archetypes. When we start operating from a place of greater internal space by excavating a lot of this stuff, that's really where navigating life becomes much simpler and much easier. And I did want to mention something really important, because I have worked with people that are using the disruptions almost as a fix-all. Because a lot of times we don't want to feel the thing we're feeling, and we'll do anything we can to get out of it. And so with the disruptions, it's fine to disrupt. Like I mentioned, it's divine to disrupt.
Yeah.
But if we're also not taking that step, maybe in a meditation, maybe in an Epsom soak, an Epsom salt bath, maybe on a walk, to just be like, okay, I've been disrupting this same reaction for like a couple of weeks now. So what's going on behind that?
The both and.
Yes, and exactly. Yeah.
The both and.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I take so many baths now.
I do
just
too.
like burning hot because of you. And I don't know if you watch Stranger Things.
It is?
Did you ever show? Okay, well, she has to like go in the water to like be in the realm. And sometimes I think about that, like, because I meditate in the bath too.
Yeah.
And it is just this like floaty, peaceful, hot, like it just can just relax you enough. Like it feels like it relaxed my body enough to be able to do that. Which again is like, there's certain things that I think women, or especially moms, we don't allow ourselves to do. Like I can't take a bath. That's so much long. Like I can't take an hour or whatever. But these, I think, these disruptions that I've taught my clients, because you taught me, I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
I just think are really helpful. Are those on YouTube? I'm going to put those in the show notes, but where can we find those?
Yeah, they're all on YouTube. And the easiest, best place to kind of get everything all in one spot would be go to radicalenlightenment.com. And about halfway down the homepage, you just drop in your email address and you get the full practice, the full daily practice.
Awesome.
And it's a single sheet download that has QR codes on it. And so you can just print it out, put it somewhere that you're going to see it, scan the morning QR code in the morning for the 3-minute morning practice. When you get home from work, before you kind of settle into the evening, after dinner, before bed, whenever works for you, scan the evening QR code and follow along with that evening practice. And I like to set it and forget it. I don't want to have to think about like, what do I need to do in order to feel better? And so really having these bookends of the day have been really powerful for me. So I'm disrupting anything that built up overnight, because I was finding I was waking up with this clenchy feeling in my chest. I'm like, where did this come from? I was fine going to bed last night. And the analogy I use is our system is very active when we're sleeping. So it cleans out the arena of the body and it puts the trash out at the curb to be picked up, and we never pick up the trash because we don't disrupt whatever built up overnight. So that's why the morning one's important. And then the evening one, we disrupt whatever happened during the day. One thing I did want to mention also about the disruptions is that there are no bad emotions. Every emotion, everything we feel is 100% valid. The opportunity and the challenge is it's not our place to point to justifying our behavior based on what the emotion is. So a lot of times it's, well, you made me feel this way, therefore I am XYZ. And a lot of times we go scorched earth because we're in a stress response.
Yeah.
And so feel the emotion. And this is part of transforming that relationship with the mind body and recognizing that I am not my thoughts. I am not my reactions. I am not my emotions. I am within the vessel that's experiencing them. So yeah, I'm feeling them. I'm connected with them, but they don't define me and they don't determine my life. They don't determine the experience I have. And so shifting these approaches, using these tools are ways that we can, again, it's one step at a time, back to ourselves, back to that capital YU, capital M me. And so we've been talking about a lot of stuff. And for those that are listening, the most important thing is to just choose one. Choose one thing in this moment that is going to work for you. Whether it's, you know what, I kind of went wild over the holidays. I want to clean up my diet. I want to start eating cleaner. You know what, my hydration's been crap. I really want to start drinking more water. Those are kind of baselines. And then another level up or two is I'm going to start using those disruptions and holding myself to task, because at the end of the day, no one else is responsible for what I'm feeling besides me. I'm the only one that can do anything about it. Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., his dad, wrote the 4 Agreements. He's got a couple of great books. He's got a quote that says, "My responsibility ends at my fingertips." And I like to add to that, however, the responsibility for everything that happens within this mind-body system is explicitly mine.
Yeah.
No one else knows the inner workings. No one else knows all the feelings, where all the reactions or the past experiences are buried other than us. And our system is at times the jailer, at times the oppressor, and it can also be the helper that points us to the space, it points us to those places within that are really ready to experience that release and transformation. And that's why the work I do, it's always client-led. And like when we've worked together, like I think I remember when we first connected, you're like, can you help me? I was like, I can't. You can. And I can help you because I can connect with your system and guide you to all the places that are ready for exactly what you're ready for. And so I look at everything that I do with clients as much more as a collaboration than anything else, because it's sometimes it's freestyle. Sometimes it's like, I don't know where we're going, but let's jump in, because I know we can get relief from the symptom. I know we can move beyond where we're at.
Yeah. So beautiful. I loved every second of this podcast, but also time with you has just been really just so healing in so many different ways. So again, I just appreciate you so much.
I appreciate the heck out of you. It was such a treat when we connected, and every single step has just been, we
can talk for hours.
Oh my gosh, like for days, literally. I mean, there's so many different directions we can pull in and go. And I'm just so grateful for you that you had that wherewithal within of saying, hey, listen, I know a lot. I am a professional in this space, and I need help too.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is we've all got blinders on. We've all got places that our system is really going to say, don't look there, because then we'll have to feel the thing that we felt back when it occurred.
Yeah.
But the rub is, by doing that, we actually can release and transform that bundle or that kind of sticky point that's keeping us in these loops. And I'm the same way. I'm by no means exempt from any of this. Last year, I jumped back in working with my various helpers, and things were bubbling back up again in Kelly and my relationship, and we work together as well. So there's that extra layer of intensity potentially around it. And it's that, holding up the mirror. We got caught in the blame loop as well. And we got caught in the unproductive conversations that are just repeating the old stuff from the past. And then one of us would say, listen, all right, we've allowed ourselves to do this for 2 hours. This is ridiculous. You handle you, I'm handling me. I'm going to clean up my side of the street. You clean up your side of the street. And then let's come together so we can actually have more of a heart-to-heart connection. So we can find out where the roots are that were deeper than we thought they were. So we can continue to experience more positivity within our own selves, more balance, more peaceful presence within ourselves, so that we can be that with others.
And you have a very, I think, special, beautiful partnership with Kelly in that feels that safe enough for both of you to enter into that and to do that for each other. Like, it's work.
Yeah.
But also, like, you have it, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've built this.
Yeah.
And so I just want to recognize that for both of you, like the hard work that you've done to make that excavating, to do that, to make it move. How you get through. That's how you get through things together. And it's just really beautiful to see. And I send so many friends to you. Yeah. And I've told all my clients, I'm like, go see Kev, go see Kev, go see Kelly. So please tell us where you've talked about Radical Enlightenment, where to find you, but what else do you have going on? I think you talked about some webinars. Like, what's the latest that people can?
Yeah. So if you're at all interested in more information, more hows and whys, and this is going to relate to business, what we do for work, our relationships in a romantic sense, our relationships with our kids. It's going to come at it.
Past trauma.
I mean,
everything.
Our relationship with fear and love, and recognizing that fear is a bridge to freedom. So we're going to be having a lot more of those conversations and sharing a lot more of that information this year in regular webinars. We're also going to be offering at least monthly workshops where, if you're interested, you can get a better feel for some of these processes that we offer. Those are all going to be at radicalenlightenment.com. Along with those deeper dive self-study, more supportive opportunities with transformation courses built on the teachings from the book My Guy on the Ninth Floor, which was a channeled work that came through in about 2.5 weeks. And it's continuing the process that was built from the 60s and through the 90s and 2000s with self-help, self-actualization, self-realization, the interpersonal work. And it provides the tools to unwind the triggers if we are more in that self-starter place. We want more information. We want a DIY approach. If you're looking for more one-on-one support, rapid transformation sessions is our client website. We actually have a quiz there so you can identify the number one subconscious belief holding you back in life.
Cool.
You can get more information about Kelly and I, and a lot more information around the science behind our approaches to the work that we do, and why the work that we do at this subconscious intervention level works and is lasting, even if the symptoms tend to reemerge. They tend to reemerge
different. It's different. Yeah.
And I've had experiences, and to the point where none of us are perfect. Kelly has recognized that in the past she has taken emotional responsibility for me, and I recognize I react to fear that I'm feeling from her. And so it's this, again, we're still in this dance, but what we've gotten to a place of is when we're having this physiological reaction, I'm in this feeling, it's no longer lasting a week or two or even a day or two of animosity or resentment or grumbling or unforgiveness. It's like, oop, nope, okay, that wasn't even me, but I felt that reaction. Okay, let me go handle that and see what's behind that. And so the time that we spend in these dances of dis-ease is like vastly less than it ever was before. And the beauty part is my system has reached for a few reactions just within the last 6 months, and the reaction's not there anymore.
Yeah. Oh,
and I'm reaching for it because I know where that tool is. I know exactly where it is on the tool board. And it's like, oh wait, that's not there anymore.
Yeah. I know that feeling. I feel that in my own partnership, and it's hard, but things are changing.
Yeah.
And and it's just like all perception of like, are things changing? But like things are rapidly changing because we're allowing ourselves to change and we're allowing ourselves to grow. And so I would say everyone go see Kev, everyone go see Kelly, because it's just been life-changing for me. I think really starting even with those disruptions, or if you're curious, like go on the website. We'll have his Instagram. We'll have your Instagram on the show notes too. You also do consultations, and I'm always like, just do a consult, Kev. You know what I mean? Just be like, I don't know what to do. What is this?
Absolutely.
But if you're anywhere and you're feeling stuck in your healing, like just try one thing at a time and just keep going.
And reflect that right back to you. If this is your first time coming across any of this, connect with Jen. She is a wealth of experience and knowledge, and such a space holder for her clients. And we've all got that piece of the puzzle. And the beauty part is, I think we have the opportunity to, in different capacities, meet people where they're at, and we're all at different places on the journey. We're all at different places on the spectrum of life experience. So again, it's a yes and. I would never expect or anticipate anyone being comfortable or ready to take these deep dives without having a conversation first. And that's it. It's like, if you're in that space, book a consult, let's get to know each other, see if it's a good fit. Because again, there are a ton of helpers out there. Not every modality, not every process, not every approach is going to be right for everybody. But we don't know unless we say yes. We don't know until we take that step to be open and start inviting potentially new things, different things we weren't accepting of, or maybe we were resistant to in the past, because you never know what that one thing is going to be for you.
That's really, I think this whole season 2 has been really about, is like kind of collecting all of these healers that have kind of impacted me personally, because I'm curious, because I'm open, and because there isn't just one right thing. And so if you've been listening and things have been resonating, or if you feel kind of teary or whatever it is, like that could be a sign to do a consultation or not. Like it doesn't matter. We're not in this. We have to live. We have to make money, but we just really want the world to be a better place. And like that is our motivation for all of it. So thank you again so much for being here. We could, again, go on for hours.
Anytime. It'd be a pleasure. I love talking with you, Jen.
All right. We'll see you next time then.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If any part of this episode resonated with you, I would encourage you to check out Radical Enlightenment with Kevin and his wife, Kelly, to see if it's a right fit for you. And lastly, if you are loving what you're hearing, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts so that we can continue to reach and help other people. We'll see you next time.